Hello and welcome to another episode of Laptop Retrospective, and today we have an Acer Aspire 5745 PG. Now, this laptop was actually built July 21st, 2010, and I know that because if I look at the plastic at the light in a very specific way, no, I'm just kidding, I read the label on the bottom that said when it was built. This is an interesting unit mainly because it came in a variety of different combinations and flavors. This was available in so many different CPU configurations that I think that's probably the best place for us to start talking about it. Without further ado, the following CPUs were available for this thing. You had two i3s, either the 350M or the 370M. You had two i5s, the 450M or the 460M, and then you had three i7 variants, either the 620M, the 720QM, or the 740QM. Price would vary extremely on these models depending on which one of those CPUs you ended up purchasing. Speaking of variety, GPUs were also not excluded from that. So you either had the Intel HD integrated graphics chip. They also came with the GeForce GT 310M, 320M, 330M, 420M, or the 425M. So again, lots of choices here. And oddly enough, touchscreen variants were even affordable with lower CPU configurations. This one, for example, is the i3 350M and is only sporting the GeForce GT 330M. Not a whole lot in terms of heavy lifting if you compare it to some of the older brothers that were available with it. Other specifications worth noting is that this one comes oddly with 3 GB of DDR3 RAM, and that would have been 1066 MHz. Now, just to muddy the waters even further, you'd have a maximum of 8 GB with the i3 and i5 boards, and then up to 16 GB on the i7 models. And that was, I believe, through 4 different RAM slots, and then on the i3 and i5, that would have been 2 RAM slots. A few other things to note is that regardless of the model that you got, it's a 15.6-inch 1366 by 768 panel, so it's not going to be winning any massive display awards, but at 2010, we're not necessarily seeing 1080p screens as the standard on most laptops. All of this is actually being driven by a 6-cell 48 watt-hour battery, so as you can imagine, battery life is not going to be fantastic, and this was really not designed to be a road warrior. It was designed to be a portable desktop replacement. Without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the ports, and we are going to start on the left-hand side. On the left-hand side, we have the Kensington lock slot, the CPU exhaust, VGA, HDMI, Ethernet, USB 2.0, and then a headphone and microphone jack separated out. On the front, we actually do have our multi-card reader slot, and along the right-hand side, we have 3 USB ports side by side. We have a multimedia bay and the power plug. Now, if you look at this multimedia bay, there is something missing. Don't see it? It's actually the eject button. Apparently, for reasons unknown, they actually put the eject button here on the top of the unit. I have seen a few laptops in my day. This is a first. The only other time I have seen a laptop eject button in a weird place, it was actually on a Panasonic Toughbook that used a solenoid to open it, and it was a common failure on that model. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and see how far we can get in a teardown if we had to, say, service one of these machines. Some of these higher end models in the i7 and i5 variant probably still have some decent life to live if the surrounding chassis has actually survived until the year 2020 when this video is being filmed. So when it comes to disassembly, pretty straightforward. You need to remove the battery, slide the left catch over until you see red, move the other catch, push up on it, and you can remove the battery. And as I mentioned before, this is of course the 6-cell variant and only sporting 48 watt hours. Not going to drive this machine for more than a few hours. To gain access to most of the upgradable components, we're going to remove this section right here. And we have a variety of screw holes that will essentially guide the process for us. All right, with all of those screws removed, we can simply pull this panel off, and we are greeted to a majority of the components here. Over on the left-hand side here, we do have our hard disk drive, and it would appear removal is simply just pulling on that tab, and out it comes because those two screw holes go through there. So that's pretty easy to remove. Here, of course, we do have the Wi-Fi card. We've got the CMOS battery, and we do have 2 RAM slots. We have undone the screw for the optical base, so we can remove it, and it's a fatty. We have our heatsink here for the CPU, which is soldered onto the board, so we're not going to be replacing that. All right, so if we want to remove that keyboard, we will just turn this device over and we'll open it up, and there's actually a clue on how this actually will come out. There are some tabs here at the bottom that are very, very reminiscent of what I've seen on several ThinkPads. So that means that this keyboard is probably going to come up through the top, and we do have a series of clips that we can probably take advantage of. So they're all along the top here. Actually, this might be a very easy keyboard removal. Yep, I do take that back. That is super easy. So you flip all these up, you can turn this over, flip that up, out it comes. That is pretty effortless. We can see here that this whole trim piece is hiding our trackpad. I couldn't see from the bottom whether or not that trackpad is actually plastic welded in place, but I'm optimistic that if the keyboard came out that easy and was designed to be that serviceable, that there might be a little bit of hope. But this is actually pretty encouraging. Very often you see these consumer laptops and they're actually not designed to be serviced, and it's all plastic welded together. Like a few of the Asus laptops on this channel that you know, they were built a little bit cheaper even than this. But I'm not terribly surprised because these weren't exactly the absolute cheapest machines out there during their time. So if you need to service the keyboard, it's pretty straightforward. All the other components come out. So at the very least, you could certainly, if you can find the parts, that is, do some basic maintenance on this. So let's put it back together and see how everything works. All right, let's go ahead and see how we power on. Again, we've got a really glossy screen here. A lot of earlier touch screens, especially the more inexpensive ones, usually got around this by being a little thicker and having some pretty high gloss panels. So as you can see, there's like the reflection of a window on the background. It's not too bad when you're actually looking at it, but it is certainly highly reflective. If you're worried about somebody sneaking up behind you while you're using your laptop looking at dark web pages, then you actually are probably going to be just fine. No one's sneaking up on you. Well, the good news is while we wait, that drive release seems to be pretty quick. Again, it does make you wonder why they designed their drive like this. I thought the button was just fine, but whatever. All right, after a little bit of waiting, we are in. Touchpad works. Touchscreen works okay. It's not fantastic. Not the best experience I've ever had, but it'll do just fine. I don't think we've got too much to worry about. One thing that is nice to note is that you can drag from the black bezel and it will start registering the touch in most instances. At least it does in the corners well enough, which is kind of handy. Now, one of the buttons I'm not too sure about what it actually does is this guy right here, and it's got a P beside it. I'm going to see if I can figure out what it actually does, and if I can figure it out, I'll put it here. So all in all, ladies and gentlemen, this laptop can still be used for a decent Windows 10 experience. I don't think you have any issue running the modern operating system on it. Just be aware that it is an older CPU, and even some of the i7s of that generation are not going to be the heavy lifters in comparison to even some of the mid-tier CPUs of newer generations. However, with a lot of things, if the price is right, or if you do happen to stumble across one of these and the components are in good shape, it's actually not a bad laptop if you are on a budget and you're looking for something used. Most of the PG variants will come with the touchscreen. According to some literature I found, it's actually the P suffix in the model number that denotes the touchscreen. And it's not the worst responding computer in the world. It's not the worst built computer in the world. It's not the hardest thing in the world to service. Parts availability, that could be what gets you. But all in all, in terms of design, I've seen a lot worse on this channel. Again, I think that this eject button is a little quirky. I have to say that it is quite fast to eject the drive, but again, I really don't know why it's there. It seems like a really odd design choice, and I'm sure there was a good reason for it. I just don't know what it is. It seems very odd. At any rate, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, I am going to encourage you to do the big four. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so the next time I feature an Acer or any other laptop on this channel for a retrospective, you'll be the first to know about it. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.